In this podcast clip, we talk about a case from the newest Missing 411 book, Hunters. If you don't like cursing and explicit content, then this segment is not for you. We curse a lot and go into some pretty graphic detail about what could be going on with the Missing 411 phenomenon. Also, we've been drinking a little bit too, a little tipsy. For full podcast episodes, check out the description below. And with all that being said, here is the Missing 411 segment. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you later.
So I got the newest Missing 411 book. Mm-hmm. Did you get it, Mike?
Not yet, no.
This is ridiculous. I sent it to you.
You actually sent me a book? Yeah, I haven't got it yet.
I got mine. You're not that far away.
No.
You're in apartment E, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
That's ridiculous. Should have came with a U.S. mail.
Did not get it yet, no. Off air, I'll give my exact address, but I'm sure you have it.
Text it to me, just so I can compare.
Yeah, it's not hard to figure out. Unless someone around here got it and like, what is this? Someone probably one of my neighbors got this and like, what is all this stuff?
What is all this stuff?
People are disappearing, and this is the Missing 411 about hunters, right?
Correct. This one's about hunters. It just came out, I believe, a month or two. No, it might even been this month.
We have some YouTube segments on this, and it's very spirited discussion. A lot of people wanting us to die and calling us shitbags. But what we cover in there are real Missing 411 cases. We joke around and have a good time with it, but it's real. People are really going missing. People are really dying, and no one knows why.
Yeah, there's really no concrete explanation. I mean, sometimes you can chalk it up just people just getting lost and dying of exposure, but I mean, not a lot of these. I'm about 30 pages in. I've only had this for about a day. Probably could have read a little bit more, but I mean, the first two cases that I read, like there was a law in Arizona. There was a family out. The father was going to go hunting. They made a camp. This little 5-year-old kid that was described as frail goes missing. And so they searched for him for weeks and weeks. And, they have air support and all that kind of fun stuff. I think this is the 1970s. And they eventually find this kid about 3,000 feet up off the trail on this this wilderness area where it was they camped in a valley, but this kid was up on a mountain, like 3,000 feet. Didn't have any shoes, lost his coat, didn't have his coat on him. It was like 30 degrees at night there. And no one has any explanation for it because all, rescue methods or lost kid psychology would point little kids walk downhill.
Yeah, because that's the easiest route taken.
Correct. And apparently for being a non-adventurous, whose parents said frail kid, I believe he was found several miles away from their campsite.
For anybody new to the Missing 411 phenomenon, which is what we've talked about for quite a number of shows and over probably the past 2 years, is that people go missing in the woodland areas, be it national parks or just out in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes it's inexplicable. But when these bodies are found, they're found with no shoes on. That is a telltale sign.
Naked from the waist down or weird shit.
So this kid was frail, and the father and the family just decided to take him out in the wilderness. How did they go into? How did this kid get away from their site? How do they get away from the campsite?
Play by in the canyon area where they set up camp by the dry creek bed or something. But the case I wanted to read, that was just one example. I guess he made a book about hunters because, unlike most people that go out hiking, hunters have a lot of experience out in the wilderness. They have a lot of experience alone.
They got guns, dude.
They have guns. They're tracking stuff. They have some survival knowledge under their belt. I guess the more main thing, if you had a gun and you were lost and you wanted people to try to find you, maybe you'd crack off a round after the first day and maybe someone could hear you.
You crack off a few rounds and make it seem like panic fire. I'm assuming if you're a hunter, you take out multiple rounds with you. You have a couple clips of ammunition or magazines, and you probably have at least 20 rounds of ammunition with you. If you crack off 5 in a row, people are going to take notice or think you're a really, really bad shot.
Yes. Or you're just shooting there's a ton of deer charging you.
Yeah.
The entire family of grizzly bears.
Took him down. I took it down, a family entire grizzly bear, one shot. Not good.
But yeah, so I mean, I haven't got his overarching theme yet, but I mean, I got only like 270 more pages to cover. Maybe I'll get to that. But there was a good case that I read. It was from this guy. This is an actual at Mount San Bernardino in California. The guy's name is Ellison Flowers. Looks like this occurred in September 23rd, 1958. This shouldn't take too long to read, but it's a goodie.
Okay.
I can skip the first two paragraphs. He's talking about his other books. So he's talking about similar cases. So he said, as the story goes here, the 26-year-old hunter that owned a gas station on Waterman Avenue in Highland, California, he called his wife on September 23rd from the gas station to say that he was driving up to the area of Jenks Lake. And at that time, it was part of the San Gregorio Wilderness. Apparently now it's part of San Bernardino Mountain State Park or something. I mean, it wasn't a state park. Either way, that's where he was at. He stated that he'd leave in the early afternoon and be back in time to close the gas station. Ellison Flowers was a very experienced outdoorsman and had the social skills to run a profitable service station. The drive for Ellison wasn't extremely lengthy, but it was on a winding dirt road up the side of a mountain. As of 11 o'clock closing time, I think it's 11 p.m., was looming. The attendant called his wife, Dolores, and asked where Ellison was. Dolores was surprised that he wasn't there because he was an extremely reliable person. She went to the station and closed the business herself and went home hoping to find her husband there. He told her he'd be back at the station no later than 10:30, so this is beyond then. When Ellison didn't arrive home following morning, his wife called the police.
Makes sense, yeah. I mean, a person who comes home after closing the business every night, you'd be pretty concerned.
And he said he'd be back that night, but half hour before close.
Does it go into if this guy's a big boozer? Do you like to go out and get hammered at the bar and do some karaoke or anything like that?
No, that wasn't mentioned in here at all.
Okay.
Nothing about genital size either, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, I am, but okay.
So the sheriff sent up a unit onto the mountain to find Ellison's sedan. Apparently drove a sedan out on the mountain. It's a four-door or whatever. And now on October 2nd in the same year, 1958, and from an article in the San Bernardino County Sun, had this information on the weather. Apparently the first day he was reported missing. Bad weather hampered the search for him, but the second day a full-scale search was launched. So we have that classic kind of the first day the search starts, weather goes to shit.
Yeah, and that is another one of these hallmark missing 411 cases, is that you're absolutely right. Weather goes to shit. It's almost clockwork at a certain point where a person goes missing in order. Let's just go ahead and hypothetically say there is some omniscient being and say, okay, we want to cover any traces that we took this person. Let's create some bad weather for people to make it really tough for them to discover a dead body. That's what it seems like at a certain point in time.
It's like covering their tracks.
Yeah.
On purpose. They launched on the second day when the weather occurred. They launched their full-scale search. And apparently, some of the terrain out there is some of the most rugged in Southern California. At the peak of the search, there's more than 150 volunteers and professionals were scouring the region above Jenks Lake, where he was supposed to be, looking for him. Deputies found his vehicle on Poop Out Hill.
Poop?
Poop out, like I'm all pooped out, but it's Poop Out Hill. They initially centered their efforts around there. The Yucaipa, I don't know, Yucaipa substation, maybe that's the town. Yucaipa substation for the sheriff was heading the effort to locate the hunter and had allocated over 20 deputies and another 150 volunteers. The articles at the time stated that that rain, sleet, and fog hampered searchers off and on during the search hunt, the searching parties. Dolores told deputies that Ellison was extremely familiar with the area and as he had hunted it for many years. Formal searches for Ellison went on for over a month. The effort included 50 Marines from the nearby Nebo Marine Base, sheriffs, search and rescue bloodhounds, the Sierra Madre Rescue Group, and the U.S. Forest Service aircraft. And they could not come up with anything. So after almost 2 years had passed, and 2 hunting seasons, and nothing had been found. And then suddenly there's a break in the case. And an October 8th article in 1960 from the San Bernardino County Sun described what a hunter found. Apparently on Thursday, James A. Rasmussen, I guess of Panoma, the hunter who found him, was hunting in the same area and spotted a skeleton while making a wide sweep through his binoculars. Rasmussen saw human remains and clothing about 150 yards below a gigantic rock, described by George Jennington as described by George Jenton, must be the writer of the story, as about 2 stories high. So about a 2-story high rock his body was beneath. It is believed the victim fell from this rock sometime after his disappearance. Deputies confirmed it was Ellison. They found his wallet, rifle, and his U.S. Army registration card. The rescuer stated that it took them 3 hours to just reach the body from where Ellison had parked his vehicle. One article surmises that he must have been confronted with a sudden snowstorm. Same article is quoted above, so from San Bernardino County Sun. And the theory from law enforcement that he died of exposure.
Of course, likely story again. This is another kind of throwaway. They always claim these people die of exposure.
Right. Yeah, it's exposure. Actually, that's one of the most common ones that they find, except for when there's some, you read in the Western U.S., there's a murder investigation was launched about one of them by Crater Lake. But here are Pilatus' thoughts on it, which are pretty interesting. So he said, let's think carefully about the evidence we are given. A 3-week search by almost 200 Marines, deputies, aircraft, and volunteers turns up nothing. Bloodhounds find nothing, a commonality in almost every story he's chronicled. Ellison is later found at the bottom of a 2-story high rock from which people believe he fell, yet they believed he died from exposure. And so he wants to know, were any broken bones identified? When a body is next to a solid granite wall, the odors and scent of the body are fairly concentrated from the wall, yet the bloodhounds are able to get nothing. How could one hunter 2 years after the event see a body from 150 yards away, yet a plethora of searchers, aircraft, canines missed it? This exact scenario has been, like you said, replicated time and time again in many of his books. Ellison was found in the exact same search area in which he was lost. The one important fact among the evidence is in this event is the location of the body. Ellison was a 3-hour hike from his car. He promised to be back at the station no later than 10:30 p.m. He left the station in early afternoon and made the 90 to 120-minute drive, so an hour and a half to a 2-hour drive to the site, and then he did the hike. If he arrived at the site at 2 p.m., hiked 3 hours, it was dark by then, or getting dark by then. There's no way he was hiking in the dark. He was an experienced hunter who knew the area well and then knew the distances. Even if he had gotten into the area at noon, he had to find a deer, shoot the deer, and gut it, and then he had to haul it back to his car to get home and to be able to get home by 10:30. To do all that to get home by 10:30, which apparently is like he said, it's a monumental task for the time that was allotted to him. So
but people have done it. People have done it before.
Yeah, so if he gets there at 2, hikes 3 hours, it's 5. You pretty much have to shoot and kill a deer there and gut it. That's going to take you. Well, you got to find a deer. Let's just assume it takes him an hour to find it. Shoot another 2 hours. You're at 7. I mean, it would have to be the most luckiest day hunting ever for him to get it done.
Fair enough.
Going out like 3 hours that way from his car.
Fair enough.
So he says main questions that should be, I guess, asked for this case. Why wasn't Ellison's body found by aircraft, ground search crews, and bloodhounds? Ellison knew his hunting area very well. Would he have fallen off the biggest rock in the area? I thought that was a pretty good point, too.
Mm-hmm.
If Ellison fell 2 stories, why didn't the fall kill him? One article stated that Ellison's rifle was found and 1 round was fired.
It was made to look like he died that way.
Or that, yeah. Why wouldn't he have fired multiple rounds to alert searchers, like we were talking about earlier? Bloodhounds, he says, don't care about politics or who they are searching for. They love to do work. Why didn't they key in on the scent in the area?
So I have to take this conversation in a direction that if you're listening to this and you are a fan of Missing 411 and this stuff, I have to take this conversation in a direction that is going to be very disturbing and explicit.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, Joe, you don't believe in any of the ghost, Bigfoot, paranormal stuff. You seem, out of the co-hosts here, myself, Mike, and Clown Baby, Joe, you seem to be the most skeptical of the paranormal people on this podcast.
Yes, the UFO thing, the Bigfoot thing, the ghost thing. All that.
What would you say are the most driving biological factors for a sentient being? Let's just go ahead and say they have human intelligence. What do people like to do?
eat, need shelter.
Okay, I'm going to give you a ring for that. People love to eat, and they want shelter. Let's go ahead and stick with eat. People love to eat.
Put drinking, needing water in with eating.
Okay.
Yeah, putting water in their bodies.
Okay.
Food is good. Food's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? You got to eat.
Once your belly's full, what do you like to do?
Have fun.
Well, how do people have fun?
They masturbate.
Yeah.
People like to fuck things.
Yeah, they want to do the nasty.
And then, if you're sadistic enough and you're done, what do people like to do?
they kill, or they could have they could fuck them to death.
So the conversation I'm going to take this in.
That's how you guys covered it a couple shows ago. He was fucked to death, and then a pillow thrown over.
So
his face.
I'm going to parallel this with a recent HBO series called Westworld.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen this yet, Joe.
I love the show.
So
I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago.
in Westworld, it is a fictional kind of virtual reality, not virtual reality. It's a real physical place that is occupied by almost semi-sentient robots where humans can come in, fuck them, kill them, do their adventures, get all their thrills out, and they can leave without no consequence. But these sentient robots are learning and remembering every time an action is taken upon them. And it kind of reminds me of this missing 411 stuff where we, the humans, are to be used and abused by a higher power's will for whatever we want. We can be fucked to death, we can be food, and then killed and thrown in the snow, and they can cover up their tracks as much as they want, and that's that. It seems like us. We are living. We are in the West world, and there's someone else fucking with us as they please.
I love it.
And
kind of Bigfoot rape attack.
Now, I'm not even talking about Bigfoot rape attack. As I talked about several episodes ago, there are various other, maybe extraterrestrial, who knows? Maybe tricksters. It doesn't fucking matter. It's just ridiculous.
Come on, keep your composure, boy.
Him and the Bigfoot.
Yeah, it could be anything. I actually think this missing 411 stuff is more akin to us being in a Westworld-like scenario than not at this point. Especially when you have confirmed reports with some of these missing 411 people with their pants down, which is that's a sexual violation. Or
just missing clothes,
and shoes off. Once you take your shoes off, it's very easy to get the pants off. Trust me, I know. And it seems like there is an unspoken sexuality or sexual component to this missing 411 stuff, and it seems as though we are the livestock. When you go out into the woods where anything can happen, shit does happen. And I'm starting to view it like that we are the feeding and the fuck ground for some higher power, and we have no control over it whatsoever. And it has that has to be locked down at any and all costs, because as soon as you release that, as soon as the government comes out, the FBI knows about this, the Green Berets damn sure know about this, the government knows about this. As soon as they release this information, say, by the way, if you go to the woods, you might get fucked to death. They can't say that.
That would be a big off to going to state parks.
That would be a big turn down in people going to state parks. And especially if it's expected that there's a certain amount of people that have to go into those state parks in order to keep the people fed. You can't do that.
So let's examine this and maybe go back a little bit to the WikiLeaks. We talked about there's a WikiLeak that Clown Baby shared. I think he shared it in the public chat where Podesta is talking about, or somebody's emailing Podesta about the deals that have been made with the aliens. And this guy from Canada, he wants in on it. He wants to know what those deals are. He doesn't want to get screwed again because Canada's got a better space program at this point. And so does this at all tie together? Like, is it an alien or it's an off-world power that's using us as an amusement park?
I hate to bring it back to this, and even myself saying this, so I delve into these topics. Last episode, I talked about the secret space program, and one of the most profitable industries is the galactic slave space trade.
Atlanta is the biggest airport hub for sex slaves and humans and trafficking.
Well, just think about what happens at the Denver airport. The Denver airport with all the Illuminati symbols going out there.
I've been there.
I mean, so have I.
I was like 12, so I didn't really,
If you go down that route, and I'm completely willing to do so because no one else is, it seems as though that we are cattle for somebody else, because there's no. Because what has. You're telling me no hunter's been able to take down a Bigfoot in all these fucking years with a 12 gauge? Especially when you have Segas out there that can do multiple shots. Don't fucking buy it. They would have been taken down. One of them would have been taken down by now. You would at least have one Bigfoot body next to a very injured and dying person who managed to shoot this creature. It has not happened. We're talking about some pretty high-tech technology being able to manipulate, fuck these people to death, and then make it look like they died by natural causes, and then being able to manipulate the weather. So these bodies are covered and very hard to retrieve.
So maybe, did you see anything about cattle mutilation?
I haven't even touched on that at all.
Yeah, I didn't think. I thought I heard you mention it, but not. But it kind of makes sense with the cattle mutilation, where they just do whatever they want with the cows and they just dump them back in the ranch.
Yeah, I mean, if they're aliens and they're not even human and they just like fucking things, like what if they're a planetary species that just fucks things to death? Just who they.
That's a Independence Day 3.
I'm not even. That is so plausible because I've read so many horrific stories of what humans have done to other humans. You read stories like that where they leave a kid locked up in a closet for years and they fuck it and they torture this kid, and they're evil people to small children. Humans do this. Consider what a higher intelligence with more technology would be willing to do to us stupid fucking apes.
Yeah.
Or cows.
Yeah, they could totally do the cow.
For some fucking playground for them where they can just fuck us to death and leave us to die, so fucking be it out in the woods.
Sounds pretty hot.
So I'm sorry to be so graphic about it, but that is, I think, the gist of it. I think that's what's going on here.
Case closed, everybody. 1-1.
I don't think it's Bigfoot doing this because, like I said, I think a Bigfoot would have been shot by now.
Yeah, it's definitely foreign powers,
especially with this hunter book. I haven't received it yet, but I'm assuming, Clown Baby, that you probably perused, and we probably would have heard about on some of the sites we visit that a Bigfoot was felled by a hunter, and this hunter found him or was found near this dead Bigfoot body. I haven't read this story.
No. There's there's that one hoax. I think maybe it was in Georgia. The guy had a Bigfoot body in the freezer, and it turned out just to be like roadkill of like some possums and raccoons that they frozen to ice.
So what do we hear? What do we hear on the missing 411 tape? We heard a guy screaming, and being taken away, and then 6 days later, dead with a high amount of GHB in his system,
floating in a pond or a river.
Floating in a river, and the guy, during his GHB experience, completely paralyzed. They can do anything they want with him and just leave him to die. That's it. I think there was some kind of deal struck, and this is the price. We're paying the price right now.
I think it's the Bills. It's Bill Cosby and Bill Clinton. It's the BCs. They're running around.
I don't know.
Teleportation. If Barack Obama's teleporting with this presidential candidate we're talking about, he's on Mars and all this other stuff, then why in the hell wouldn't Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby team up to just fuck things to death all over the world?
They might not have the power. As I talked about with the Mars colony, is that they're probably working for somebody else, and they have a very tight grip on what people do up there in Mars. The Mars colony, they're miners up there, and we're humans, and we're part of an intergalactic consortium but there are more powerful beings out there, according to the Secret Space Program book that I read. So if we're going to go down that route, which I'm completely willing to, you have to do it with these missing 4. We've read so many cases like this. It's getting frustrating at this point, and I can only imagine how David Peleus feels.
As the skeptic, I will say that the missing 411 stuff, especially when we played the call and everything else, like that stuff is so fascinating to me. There's so many coincidences that you have to at a certain point go, just there's something up here.
It's getting frustrating at this point, and I can only imagine how he feels.
Where is he? Why isn't he on the show yet?
He won't do this. We talk about porn too much.
I don't think have we reached out to him at all?
No. We probably should hit some headlines here before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
Definitely.
Now it's time for the motherfucking news.
All right, little hooty hoot, everybody out there.
You want to woo woo?
Yeah, I want to woo woo.